Hey guys, before you watch this video, I want to quickly warn you that this video contains spoilers for Walking with Dinosaurs 2025. If that bugs you and you want to save this video for when you get the time to watch the series in full, feel free to do so. But if you watched it or you don't care for spoilers, then you may proceed. Without further ado, let us begin. Hello everybody, this is JoAnn speaking here, and welcome to Paleo Reviews. This review is going to be a huge one, so I hope you guys brought popcorn and soda. On this special episode of Paleo Reviews, I'm going to be talking about a familiar series that recently made a comeback this year in some way, shape, or form. Walking with Dinosaurs, 2025, a 6-part documentary series that serves as a revival of the 1999 miniseries of the same name. Much like Ballad of Big Al, the episodes tell a story about a specific dinosaur based off evidence found in the fossils. Along the way, the documentary also shows paleontologists digging up those fossils as the story of each dinosaur continues on. We not only get a few returning dinosaurs from the original, but we also get new ones along the way. The first episode talks about Clover, a baby orphan triceratops who struggles to survive. While she did get lucky several times, especially with surviving a T-Rex encounter, her fossil says otherwise, as she still died young off-screen. While she wasn't eaten, it's currently unknown how Clover died. The second episode centers around Sobek, a Spinosaurus who's a father looking after his babies. He and the little ones embark on a journey to find more food. In the end, Sobek was able to feed his babies, but sadly dies from his injuries caused by a fight. The third episode centers around a young Gastonia named George. He and a gang of other young Gastonia survive against a Utahraptor pack. Eventually, the Utahraptor leader gets killed, while the rest of the raptors get stuck in quicksand. George and the gang end up meeting their demise after they inhaled too much smoke from a forest fire. The fourth episode talks about Rose, a teenage Albertosaurus. She and her pack struggled to survive, and Rose even got into a scuffle with her leader known as the Matriarch. After suffering a tragedy with Rose losing her mate, she was able to help her pack bring down an old Amontosaurus. The fifth episode is about Albie, a baby Pachyrhinosaurus. He and his mother migrate with a colossal herd to find food and reach their nesting grounds. Tragically, many herd members, including Albie, die from a flash flood. However, the story ends with survivors reaching their destination. And now, the final episode tells the story of Old Grande, a male Luso-Titan. He struggles with finding a mate, but despite his age, he beat the odds by recovering from an injury, defeating a rival, and was able to pass on the next generation. I grew up watching the original Walking with Dinosaurs, including Walking with Beasts, Monsters, and the ones featuring Nigel Marven, so when I first heard this news on Walking with Dinosaurs having a revival series, I was both hyped and surprised. It's been many years since the original came out, so I've been wondering how a revival series based off of a beloved series would go down. Then sometime before it came out, I rewatched the original series, the awful 2013 movie, and Ballad of Big Al. And now that I've seen this new series, it was actually pretty fun. And I think it's safe to say that we dove into some new territory here. Walking with Dinosaurs in this new series feels different, but there are still good things about it, which I'll get into in a little bit. I was caught off guard a bit when I first dove into this show. It seems like the new Walking with Dinosaurs wanted to take a huge risk by changing the format of what plenty of us are used to seeing in the original series. If you're someone who expects this documentary series to be purely focused on the dinosaurs like the original, you're going to be very disappointed. It's not a bad thing to make changes, but one thing to remember is that it all depends on how those changes play out. Does it play out smoothly? Is it a mess? Or is it a mixed bag? On one hand, it makes sense to watch some fossil evidence being presented to the audience, since it helps put the pieces together on what might have happened to the dinosaurs. It's like Ballad of Big Al. On the other hand, some intense scenes tend to get abruptly switched off back to the present day, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who prefer the style of a nature documentary show, like the original, which is understanding. For me at least, while I was more used to the original format, I've gotten used to this kind of style after watching the first episode. To be honest, it could have been a whole lot worse in my opinion. The presentation could have been jumbled up and way too all over the place like Netflix's Life on Our Planet, and at least this isn't one of those things like the 2013 movie where it insults the audience by making things so unnecessarily childish. And if you're someone who's really passionate about paleontology, then these excavation scenes in this series could be right up your alley. Now that this is out of the way, I want to talk about the stuff I like about the new Walking with Dinosaurs series, and there's plenty. First off, I like how whenever the episode begins the story of a particular dinosaur, the camera shows the shot of our planet Earth. Those shots are very gorgeous to look at, and to me, those scenes visually show that dinosaurs are not something out of this world, but they were once living beings who lived on this planet just like us and the animals that are currently alive today. Another thing I enjoyed is how the series went down the same path as Ballad of Big Al, where they use fossil evidence to put together a story of what might have happened. Just like I said in my other review video, it is one of the aspects of paleontology. Any fossil you find has a story to tell, and the more you dig, the more stories add up. I also like the unique behavior from some of these dinosaurs. Gastonia showed behavior that go beyond just swinging the tail, and that is headbutting. However, they didn't headbutt because they wanted to fight, they headbutt as a way to make friends. We also see a Montosaurus rear up and wave their hooves at any danger in front of them. Even though there's no moment where a predator gets whacked by the hooves, it's still a nice touch on how dangerous Hadrosaurs can be when they are in distress. We also see Spinosaurus use their sail for intimidation purposes rather than mating displays. I also like how this documentary shows a unique way Tyrannosaur arms can actually be useful. In episode 4, Rose and her mate use their arms to comfort each other after a bad day with the matriarch. This goes to show that even with tiny little arms, they gotta have some kind of purpose. I'm glad this isn't one of those moments where tiny Tyrannosaur arms were made fun of. Valley of the T-Rex is guilty of that crap. And one more behavior I want to bring up is Lusoid Titan eating bones. It may sound shocking, but believe it or not, it's a real thing in the animal kingdom today where plant-eating animals like giraffes will eat bones from a carcass to get some minerals. Old Grande the Lusoid Titan ate bones from a dead plesiosaur in order to help his injured leg heal faster. Last but not least, I enjoyed the episodes involving Old Grande and Sobek. I don't recall a single documentary where a brachiosaur, or a close relative, is the main character / focus. In the original show, Brachiosaurus was pretty much a background animal that was encountered by some young Diplodocus. However, in the new series, a relative to Brachiosaurus, known as Lusoid Titan, gets the chance to shine. So this is pretty refreshing. I also really like Old Grande's story. He may be an aging dinosaur, but not all stories end in a tragedy with animals like him. In the end, he still had some fight left in him, and he was able to achieve what he wanted. And as for Sobek, episode 2 is my #1 favorite episode. I am so happy with how this series showed Spinosaurus. No T-Rex killer shenanigans, no monsters resurrected shenanigans, no nothing. It's Spinosaurus being an animal because it was a living animal. When faced with danger like the Carcharodontosaurus, Sobek actually backs down because he wants to avoid injury to help his babies survive. Even in an alternate world where T-Rex and Spinosaurus live together, they would normally avoid each other. Although sadly Sobek ended up meeting his demise, but not before providing for his babies. Also, just in case you guys are curious about my thoughts on the CGI for this program, I think for the most part the CGI looks pretty good, although there are a few moments where it looks a little off, especially that one part where Clover runs through the forest. And there have been moments for where the same scenes repeat themselves over and over again. This is not related to me being spoiled by the CGI effects for Prehistoric Planet, although I don't blame others for feeling spoiled by those effects after watching that documentary. And now it's time to provide several critiques on this program. I'm not gonna be one of those people who complains about how, oh no, it's different from the original. It's just that there are several things that could have made this revival series more better. I'm not gonna talk about the format because I already did that before I started pointing out what I liked about this series. I will admit that the intros are very underwhelming. One of the most famous examples in the original Walking with Dinosaurs is the intro. We can all agree that it is a classic. The sun rising, the color overlays, the music, all that jazz. Speaking of the sun rising, the first episode of this new series referenced it. Even Walking with Beasts, Monsters, and Cavemen got creative as well with their own intros. It helps get the viewers all excited for an episode. But with the revival series, it's just a montage of scenes from the episodes with the dinosaurs and paleontologists, and then the logo appears at the end. Although I did like the eyeball part because it reminds me of Walking with Dinosaurs the live experience. Granted, Prehistoric Planet had a similar intro, but that didn't bother me since it is its own thing and it's not connected with any Walking with shows. Although Life on Our Planet had a killer intro of its own. FYI, I'm not critiquing the intros in the new Walking with Dinosaurs series because of nostalgia goggles. I'm critiquing it because I feel like it's traditional for a Walking with series to be creative with their intros. Given the times we currently live in today, it would have been really nice to see what a modern Walking with Dinosaurs intro would look like. Sadly, this series missed that mark. Another thing I want to point out would be some of the behavior in one scene with the Utah Raptors, and of course, Sobek's death. Let's start with the Utah Raptors. So, what scene am I talking about? Well, there's a scene where the Utah Raptors successfully catch a Gastonia and start eating it, but then the pack leader notices George and decides, oh boy, even though there's food in front of me already, I'm gonna try to catch this guy. Granted, the narrator did explain, and I quote, like a fox in a henhouse, the kill triggers the leader's predatory instinct, but it still felt vague. Then when a small group of Planecoxa show up, the Raptors just ditched their kill and went after them because they're easier to get. After that scene, I was like... And as for Sobek's death, I felt he died a bit too quickly from his injuries. He pretty much died mere minutes after getting attacked by another Spinosaurus and feeding his babies. I expressed my confusion on both Sobek's death and the Utah Raptor scene with some friends, and my friend Jahir, who saw the show before me, had this to say about both scenarios. The way I saw Sobek dying minutes later is maybe the rival bit into a major artery during the attack, leading to a quick bleed out. As for the Utah Raptor, perhaps it's showing a very high predator drive on the level that cats have. And perhaps feeding on one carcass might lead to intense squabbling, hence why some chase the Planecoxa to have more meat to themselves. That's at least how I personally interpret those two scenes. Utah Raptors having high predator drive like cats and wanting more food to avoid conflicts. Sobek dying minutes later from a fight because of a main artery getting hit and bleeding out quickly. Yeah, it does make more sense. On top of that, Sobek was bit in the neck and was bleeding afterwards, and neck injuries are no joke. Although hearing all that made me wish the narrator wasn't so vague on those scenes because 1. The scene with the Utah Raptors still felt like something from a documentary that came out shortly before the year 2010, and 2. Even if the narrator explained Sobek getting hit in the artery and bleeding out fast, it wasn't like there were any visuals of too much blood leaking out and pouring onto the ground while Sobek was walking away before hitting the ground. Yes, that kind of visual would have been pretty graphic, but that would have made Sobek's death more believable. And as for any of my favorite scenes, I like the part where Sobek was stopping one of his babies from wandering off. He was just all like, "Where do you think you're going, kiddo? Stay where you are." Another scene that's my favorite would be in the 4th episode where after Rose helps her pack kill a Adamantosaurus, the matriarch allows Rose to eat right beside her. After what Rose has been through, she deserves her happy ending. I also enjoyed the scene from episode 3 where the Utah Raptors were hiding in the long grass while they prepare their attack. It reminds me of the scene from the Lost World Jurassic Park where a pack of velociraptors ambush a group of humans. To conclude this review, Walking with Dinosaurs 2025 was pretty fun to watch in my opinion. The start of it was a little rusty, some parts could have been better, and some of the charm of the original 1999 series is missing, but to be fair, it could have been a whole lot worse. Even with its imperfections, the 2025 series absolutely shuts down that 2013 movie to pieces. The 2013 movie talks down on its audience, insults the legacy of the original series, and was reeked with that stereotype on dinosaurs are for little kids. If they're little kid stuff, why did the 2025 series show grown men and women digging up dinosaur fossils? I mean, I know dinosaurs are not for everybody, but come on. Plus that stereotype was stupid from the get-go anyways. Dinosaurs do not deserve to be shrugged off with a laugh because of kids liking them. In the end, they are part of our Earth's history, and just like today's modern animals, dinosaurs were living beings. The original series will hold a special place in my heart no matter what, but I will still appreciate the 2025 series for some of the stuff it had to offer. Despite some questionable moments, lack of animatronics, and missing some of the charm of the original 1999 show, This series has robust dinosaur design updates for both returning old favorites and newcomers, decent CGI effects, new intriguing behaviors, great music, and eye-popping visuals. Wagami Dinosaurs 2025 shall earn an 8 out of 10 sickle claws. That concludes my review on this documentary series. And in case you guys are curious of what else I'm going to talk about, well, obviously Jurassic World Rebirth is going to be one of my next things to review. But I'm also going to review something very old school as well. For now, I'm going to keep it as a surprise until I upload the Paleo review video about it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later in another video.